2nd and 13, and another huge hit leads to an interception. It's the big lineman down the sideline, and finally pummeled at the 14. Dutton.
I told you that we were going to hear from Akunne at some point, and he comes up with the big hit that pops the ball up in the air and causes the interception. And watch Akunne here. Bertram just hangs onto the ball, stares the receiver down, and Akunne is able to drive on that and come up with the big hit.
I think we picked the right time to highlight that man, because he might have just made the play of the first half.
You look earlier, this time they don't bluff it, they bring it. And it's Akunne, who's been impressive in training camp, who punishes Jared Goff. That's what the Cowboys are going to do this year.
Yeah, Don't get it twisted. This rap game is mine, and it's not a fucking game. Fuck what you heard. It's what you hearing. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you hearing. Listen. It's what you.
Go, Derek. Let's go, Derek. Let's go, Derek. Oh yeah, nice and tight. Yep. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, guys? Marcellus Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. Here with my boy Derek Akunne, former D1 athlete, former NFL football player, current powerlifter, here in this beautiful pink, purple style room. And pretty much, guys, we're going to be talking to you about a few things today, pretty much using like Derek as an example. I'm going to let him go through his background and everything like that. But what we're going to be talking about today, guys, is building off that previous video I did over the reality of genetics and your potential. We're going to be talking about the difference between elite genetics and drug use, and kind of how you can distinguish between the difference. Not that it should really matter in the sense of whether you're on drugs or not. As I mentioned in that past video, you can only be as good as like what you are. Getting on a bunch of drugs isn't going to help you surpass someone else's like who has like high level elite genetics. We're going to be talking about the gene pool as a whole in like different sports from Derek's perspective, like actually like playing D1 football, being in the NFL, compared to kind of what he sees in powerlifting, and why you're kind of seeing this shift in the gene pool, not only in powerlifting but in the fitness industry as a whole. And then it's kind of talking about like body composition and giving you guys a better idea into that in the terms of like, even though like even someone like Derek who may build muscle more easily, like the big difference between the amount of muscle that he's going to have on his frame compared to somebody else isn't so much the muscle he'll get from weight training, but it's just the genetic muscle that he has, like from growing, puberty, etc. So we're kind of going to get into all of that, kind of let him give his background, and as he does so, just give you guys more insight into this. So this might be kind of like, you know, a longer video, but I think we're going to be covering some stuff that you guys have shown a lot of interest in. So Derek, I'm going to go ahead and let you get started, just kind of talking about how you first got involved in like football, sports, kind of like what some of maybe the numbers you were hitting, like how weight training was structured during football compared to when you first started getting involved in actual structured weight training, and then getting under our coach Brandon, etc. So I'm gonna let you kind of get into that.
So I started playing sports like when I was maybe six years old or so. I started off playing soccer like when I was really little. My parents are from Nigeria, so soccer is like the big thing there. So I played soccer up until I think about middle school, and I got to like middle school, and I was just like too big to play soccer anymore. So I got to like 7th grade. I started playing football in 7th grade.
So even in elementary, middle school, you already could see like you were getting pretty sizable for like compared to people like your age.
And so so like I got to like middle school, started playing football. Freshman year of high school, I think. Oh, and also like started weight training in like 7th grade. It wasn't like anything serious though. It was like really unstructured, like here and there weight training. Once I got to like high school, we actually started kind of doing like more structured weight training, like in the off season, like, you know, actual like squat, bench, trying to like progress and everything. But like by the time I was like 9th grade, so like 14, 15, I was like 200 pounds. So like I haven't been under 200 pounds since like 8th grade.
And we'll have some pictures up on screen for you guys, so you can kind of see like what Derek looked like, you know, like in high school compared to like when he kind of started getting in college and then started weight training, and then like some recent pictures now, so you can kind of see that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So then I got to high school. Yeah, I was in high school. By the time, I think the last time we maxed out in high school, my bench max I think was 325 touch and go. My squat max was 435. And then I got to college, started playing. I went to the University of North Texas. I was on a scholarship there. We only maxed out our squats like my freshman year. We only maxed out one time on squat. So at the end of my freshman year, which was like 2012, my squat max I think was 495. That was like what they capped us at. Once we like hit 500, they didn't really let us like go.
So they wouldn't even let you progress even further beyond that.
Because he said like, well, at least for like maxing purposes. Because our coach's philosophy was like, being able to squat 600 pounds like isn't really going to help you in football. And like, or testing if you can do it isn't helpful. Once we got to like certain strength, they were kind of just more about like more sports specific and like maintaining strength and like how to like apply that force. So,
and that's something I want you guys to keep in mind too, that like a lot of people will be like, oh, I've been lifting for this long. And yeah, you've been dealing with weights for that long, but there's a huge difference between weight training as accessories to a sport and then actually focusing on structured weight training. That's something I want you guys to kind of keep in mind as he continues on.
And then like the last time I maxed out when we were in college on bench, I think 355 for a touch and go was my max, and that was maybe like 2013, maybe 2012. But the way we like trained for football, we it was more so like trying to like force production. So we had like our like max effort days where we were like going like heavier, but we also had like use like resistance bands, chains, things like that for like force production, power.
Using it for the right reasons.
Exactly.
Unlike what everyone else is doing like in powerlifting right now. But anyway.
And then and so also we only really like strength trained maybe 16 weeks out of the year. So like in the off season we had about like 8 weeks of like actual like lifting weights, trying to like get stronger, lifting heavier weights, and then after that we would have like spring ball. And in spring ball we would lift like maybe 2-3 times a week, but it was all like maintenance type stuff. Then we had like 8 weeks in the summer that was like strength training, but not as heavily like strength. We had like heavy days, but we didn't go as hard because we were also doing like sport specific stuff because we were getting ready for like for the fall camp. So like so when I was in college, like it was really like no like real true like trying to progress, like, oh, we're trying to get stronger, we're lifting for the sake of the sport,
of bettering your performance in football. And what did you say the most you kind of weighed was like in college? The
highest I got in college was like 245.
Okay.
And then my senior year I was around like 235.
Okay, got you.
235ish, yeah.
Got you.
And then once we got to like the NFL, once I got to like the professional level, that's really like maintenance. Like when I was with the Atlanta Falcons first, the strength coach's philosophy there was just he's trying to have you healthy on game day. And that was it. So we like did like strength training, but it wasn't ever heavy. Like,
so it was more like heavy, literally just general strength training for health. Not anything like powerlifting or anything like that.
We like squatted and benched, and we did like movements like power cleans and things like that, but it was always for like the sake of just not losing any strength. Not necessarily trying to get stronger or push anything, because they didn't want it. because football's already like a taxing sport, especially when you get to that level. So they're more so just trying to get you healthy and then not just like weaker. You know, of course they don't want you to get weaker than you already are. So I was with the Atlanta Falcons for about 1 year. Then I went over to the Cowboys. And the strength coach there, they're kind of the same philosophy. We pushed it a little bit more there. We never really maxed out on squats or bench. We did like max rep test on bench press. I think the most I got there was like 315 for 9 reps, touch and go. And we like squat with chains. We did the same thing, like squat with chains, bench with chains for like speed and everything like that. And when I was with the Dallas, this was like 2016, I think. The lowest I got was like 223 pounds. So I cut weight because I was trying to like be quicker, because I know it wasn't gonna be like a big linebacker, so I was like, I didn't really be like big.
That's huge.
Exactly. So so then once I was done football, 2016 was like my last year playing like football. Like after that I got into like strength training, and then so like the first like program I really like ran was like the PHAT by Lane Norton. I ran that for like a little bit, and then after that, I ran PH3 by Lane Norton. And so when I got tested my maxes at the beginning of running PH3, which was like October, November 2016, my bench max was 365 touch and go. My squat max was 515.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And then my deadlift max, I think I did like 445 conventional. Cause I really didn't. I'd never deadlifted
in football or anything like that.
Yeah,
right.
the first time I ever deadlifted was like in 2016.
Gotcha.
So I ran PH3 for like 13 weeks. At the end of PH3, so like in January, February-ish, 2017, my squat max was 585, bench 405 for touch and go, and conventional deadlift I did like 510 because I wasn't really like still
pushing it that
much.
Yeah,
because I didn't trust my form. My form was terrible.
Right.
So after PH3, I ran PH3 and messed up my shoulder. So like, I messed up both my rotator cuffs. So I had to take like a couple months break from bench press. I still squatted and dealt a little bit.
It was the only time that I was ever benching more than this guy, and I felt pretty good.
Is that squat? Sometime like in March 2017, I squatted 605 pounds. I was running a program that Marcel's wrote for me at the time. And that's like testing my max one day, like 605. And then around like May 2017, I decided, like, I've seen a couple of Marcel's meets and seen some stuff on Instagram, and I was like, powerlifting's pretty cool. Like, so I think I want to get back into something that was competitive. Like, I like lifting weights, but I didn't want to just lift weights for the sake of lifting weights.
Right.
And I thought about doing bodybuilding for a little bit, but then I realized that wasn't for me. I wasn't the type of person that wanted to like stand on stage.
Yeah, you want to like perform.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to actually like compete. So I was like, powerlifting would be pretty fun. So, but I like knew right away just from like seeing other people's stuff that like I wanted to like my technique, everything to be on point.
Right.
So that's when like I found Brendan Teets Aesthetic Strength on Instagram, and I kind of like watched his stuff on YouTube and looked at his channel, and I was like, this guy's pretty knowledgeable and his technique's on point. He knows what he's doing. So I hit him up. Started working with him in June 2017. That's when we first started our actual official training cycle. So I worked with him in June. My first powerlifting meet was like November 2017. My squat max was 650. The 650 of my meet on squat, 661 on deadlift, and then 402 on bench.
For an actual like pause rep.
Yeah, pause rep. Yeah. And the bench was like RP10. That was,
it was a grind.
And then so it was like the deadlift was like RP10. So then fast forward to now, I've hit 705 for 2 on squat. Deadlift, the most I've done is 683. Bench, I've done 440 as in most in the gym.
And we'll both be competing at Summer Power Fest June 30th, so then you guys will be able to even see kind of where he's at that point. So the first thing I kind of want to touch on, like I said, guys, is first and foremost, like going over, like, let's just hit the simple on the body composition. So you said the most you weighed, you said you haven't weighed like less than 200 since high school, correct?
Since I was like 13.
Yeah. And then you weighed like, you said like 240, 250 the most in college or something like that?
Yeah.
And tell them what you weigh right now.
240.
240.
So right now I'm like 242, 240.
So like I said, so right now I'll show you guys, like, I'll just put on screen like the pictures so you can see, like, we'll put like, how old he was and everything like that, all the way up to now. So as you guys can see, it's like, even though his physique obviously does look different, like from muscular development, and we were even talking about today how like his back, even when we first started training together, even though he's pretty muscular developed in a lot of areas, his back especially has come up just because they weren't doing a whole lot of pulling motions in football. Because like in football, when are you ever really trying to pull someone towards, you know what I mean? And then even with deadlifts, that's a very taxing movement, so they don't really work on that. But you guys can see that he's still weighing around the same amount. So body composition is crazy, guys. Like even me, I want to say like my first powerlifting meet in 2015, I was weighing around like 161, 162, and I'm weighing around that now, but I'm clearly like thicker and more muscularly developed than what I was then. So body composition can do a lot for you guys. So instead of being so quick to assume like, everything's drugs, like, and that's the distinctive difference. And I'll have linked down below the video I did over like how much muscle you can build from weight training alone, and I go over like the average person to the genetic elite, someone that like Derek's a good example of. But it's understanding that like in terms of like the muscle he's put on from weight training, yes, there's been some, but he still weighs about the same.
Yeah.
He's always been a heavier dude. He's always been a more muscularly developed dude, and a lot of that just comes from like just genetically he puts on muscle easily, genetically through puberty. Like, and that's the thing people don't take into account for. Like when you tell people like, oh, you know, like you'll probably put on like 20 pounds of muscle, like at best, like genetically, like 20 pounds of muscle in your first year, and people are like, oh, I put on way more than that. You're not taking into account just the weight you're gaining from growing, the muscle mass is coming on your frame from puberty, from your testosterone, your hormones getting boosted. All that has to do with it. If it's one of those things where it's like, if Derek actually, like for example, let's say he was on something, he would weigh much more than what he does now. Like if he had been taking stuff like just say the past couple of years, he's not going to weigh the same that he did before he got on a structured weight training plan. He'd probably be like 260, 280. So in terms of like how to determine between like genetic elites and then like drug use, a lot of you guys have these, like, you use these arbitrary factors like, oh, well, he looks really big or he's strong. That's so subjective. It's like someone's always stronger than somebody else. So by that standard, maybe I'm not natty because I'm stronger than somebody, which is crazy, right? Or, oh, well, he looks really big and really lean. And I understand when someone's like single digit body fat, right? And they look like they've retained all muscle fullness, all glycogen, etc. But you guys have to understand that physiologically, the way people look, like even hearing things like, oh, well, he has full traps, or oh, he has really developed delts. Like, and I understand like the androgen receptor part of that, like those, like it's one thing if somebody has really good delts and traps, but nothing else is blown up, then yeah, that might be a sign of drug use. But if someone just naturally like has bigger traps or developed delts, assuming they're on drugs is like really arbitrary. You need to look at objective things, like, and I don't mean like the what is it, like the body, like the not the BMI, but the, you know, the thing that people try to use, the fat-free mass index. It's just as bad as BMI, dude. Like, I think even on that, when I put my stuff in there, that it has me over like what the normal is supposed to be.
I think they said like a natural shouldn't be over 25.
Yeah, and what was yours when you did it?
29 to 30.
So it's
depending
like,
on like what I put in my body fat percentage.
Exactly. So
I think I put in my body fat percentage at 15%, and my fat-free mass index was like a 28. If I put like 12%, it was like 30. And
you're saying, and if I had to guess, your fat's probably closer to that 11 to 12 anyway. But it's like looking at things like rate of progression, guys. Like diminished returns with muscle mass is a very real thing. Like with each year of consistent weight training, you're not going to put on as much muscle with each year. So if you see somebody where they're putting on pounds and pounds of muscle every year, even after the first 2 years, then yeah, that's a pretty big sign. But that's something that we can physiologically actually track and look at and be like, okay, it's probably not natural. That's not the same thing as somebody who was already kind of big to begin with, blowing up a little bit more because they're now doing structured weight training. Of course, they're mostly going to respond well to it. And even with strength, yes, it's like strength's a little bit different. It doesn't diminish in the same way that muscle mass does, but it's kind of like a line, like a curve. But even so, like it'd be one thing if like you guys saw Derek's numbers, like the increases, right, with really good structured program. And Derek's technically almost going through like beginner gains with powerlifting because it's a new stimulus, right? But even so, he went from like, let's see, a 400 pound competition bench in November to, when did you hit the 450?
I hit 440 back in like March. So like a few months, like putting on 40 pounds. That's really good progression. Now, if he had put on 100 pounds to his bench or 100 plus pounds in like 2 or 3 months, that's a weird type of progression because even though he hasn't been doing this as long, he's still been exposed to the weight training stimulus long enough to where he shouldn't be adding 100 pounds to his bench in 2 months. Like, it's one thing if you're a beginner and you do something like that, but even me as a beginner, when I first started lifting weights, like because I had the calisthenic background first, my max on bench was like 200, and by the end of my first year it was 300. So I put 100 pounds on my bench in a year. But putting on 100 pounds on your bench in like 2 months, when you've been lifting for some years already, it's things like that. That's what you guys have to look at, is like the numbers and the trends. That's gonna give you a better tell sign than something arbitrary like, oh, well, just like I hate the videos where people are like, oh, well, so I don't even know how to do this like review over if this guy's in there. Like, it's so obvious, just look at it. It's like really, like, it's not even the fact that a lot of those dudes aren't like, it's not even that I think a lot of those dudes are natural, but it's like, provide actual objective evidence. Otherwise, you're just slandering them because they look better than you, which is ridiculous. That's all it is. It's like, so at that point, whether they're natty or not doesn't matter. As I explained to you guys, whether someone's natty or not, you should only care about that more from like an ethical standpoint. Like if someone's trying to sell you something on the basis of them being natty, but even if they're not, if Derek or I were to try to sell you guys something, not on the basis of, hey, we're knowledgeable, you know what we're doing, but on the basis of, oh, you can look like us, even as naturals, that's still wrong.
because we have different genetics. You're not going to look like either of us.
Exactly.
So that's the problem with that. So that kind of covers like, you know, elite genetics versus drug use, and then there's some tell signs, you know, like the gyno and the puppy nipples, there's certain things where you can physically look like someone, be like, okay, yeah, it's kind of obvious, but it's not just like, oh, they're really big or really strong.
Yeah,
that's too subjective. But then the last thing I kind of want to touch on in this video, guys, was kind of like in getting Derek's input is like, okay, what people consider right now kind of like elite genetics in powerlifting, what do you think about that compared to someone that's actually been around high level athletes? Like what's your comparison? Like I can't help but think you kind of like laugh at it a little bit when people be like, oh, this guy has like high level genetics compared to things you've seen.
Yeah, so I think like powerlifting isn't really popular still at this point. It's getting more popular, still not like super popular. I remember like when I was in high school, we had a powerlifting team, of course, and they like, I remember like the coaches asked me to be on a powerlifting team, and I was like, I'm not doing that. What do I want to do powerlifting for? It's not cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, when I was like 16, 17, 15, and I was like, it's not cool to do. It's not fun to do.
Yeah.
So once I got like through college, like later into college, when like the fitness industry started like booming on Instagram and everything like that, and then even like my last couple of years of like playing football in the NFL, I was like kind of seeing that, and I was like, oh, this stuff looks kind of like actually kind of fun, kind of cool. So that's how I even like got like exposed to it. But there's so many, like I said, like the genetic pool, because like the best, it's kind of like you compare like the U.S. men's soccer team to like other countries. In other countries, soccer is like the main sport. So all their best athletes
are playing soccer. Right.
In the U.S., the number one sports are baseball, basketball, and football. So all the best athletes are playing those sports. Right. So you're like the genetic pool in powerlifting is kind of small when you think about that.
Exactly.
So even like I'll use examples of guys I played football with in college. There was a guy, I remember, he's a running back. His name was Jeremy Brown. He was maybe like 5'6", 170. He squatted like 605 pounds and bench pressed like 415.
That's wild.
Like, touch and go. There are tons of guys on my team that were squatting like in the 600s, benching the 400s that were like running backs.
So this guy,
200 pounds.
So you say he was 5'6", 170. So about a little bit more than me, a little bit shorter than me. Do you remember if his leverage is like compared to me, it was like longer limbs? Was he kind of like stocky?
Oh, he was stocky. Yeah, stocky. Yeah. Short arms and short legs.
And which is another thing you guys have to consider too. Yes, how much you weigh has to do with how much weight you can lift. That's why there's weight classes, right? Like they take into account height and weight, but it's understanding that usually when we're talking about that, we're talking about like muscle mass. It's like usually if you weigh more, you have more muscle mass on you. If you have more muscle mass, you can produce more force, lift more weight. But people heavily underestimate things like leverages, like our boy Russell Orhe. People all the time, like I'll see on his posts like that, they're like, oh, there's no way this dude can be natty. Like, how is he deadlifting so much when he weighs like under 200? Not taking into account that one, besides the fact of how muscular the dude is, like no disrespect to you, Russell, if you're watching this, but homie, you're short. Like he's literally shorter than me. He's 5'5", really short legs, and like his arms are like almost the perfect size because like they're not so long to where it kills his bench, but they're long enough to where he doesn't have to like bend over too much for the deadlift. So when you can take into consideration his leverages, and they doesn't have to lift the weight as far, on top of how muscular he is, that has a huge thing to do with it. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Like Derek's saying, the gene pool is getting bigger, yes, and you're seeing people that are just built better for powerlifting getting involved. Everyone's so quick to want to be like, drugs this, drugs that, and yes, and we understand drug tested doesn't mean drug free, but honestly, that's such a weak argument because that's the closest you're gonna get. Because
people just they just have like a small view on what's possible athletically, just because the only thing they pay attention to is powerlifting, and they haven't been around actual
sports,
high level genetic freak athletes. They don't understand. Like there was guys like I saw in the NFL, like linemen squatting like 700 pounds like it's nothing, and they only strength train like maybe 8 weeks out of the year. They don't even try to train for strength. They're guys lifting like crazy amounts of weight, doing all crazy things that make me look weak, like I'm nothing. Like
so even if you want us to be like, well, and when those high level sports, you know, like they're paying a lot of money, so like those people are on drugs. It's like, okay, but if you want to put that in consideration, we understand how drugs can help put on muscle mass quickly, but the effect that drugs has on strength is nowhere near as significant. That's why you see a bunch of these big dudes that are on drugs that are still weak. Like the fact that they're only training for strength still 16 weeks out of the year, whether on stuff or not, but still able to move that type of weight, it just shows. And that's the biggest thing. The gene pool is changing very slowly, but guys, I promise you, as things go on, you're going to see more people like Derek. You're going to see more people like Russell getting involved in this. Like literally, if we like Candido, like a few years ago, he was considered like elite. Like his numbers he was hitting were elite, and now they're just not as relevant. Like there's a time where a 500-pound deadlift was huge, and now it's like Like, dude, I rep that. Like,
Exactly.
it's just not as
there's
significant.
There's a kid, I think he's from like Trinidad, Tobago. He's in my weight class. He's like 22 years old.
Yeah.
His Instagram name's like Deadlift Lord, something like that. Like a day after I posted my 705 for 2, he posted 705 for 3.
For 3, yeah. I remember.
Like RP looked like RP like 7 looked way easier than what I did, and it's like just as more people get into it, more people actually start like playing like doing the sport of powerlifting.
Yeah.
What like the standard is going to be.
It's going to change. And the thing is, it's like, and I think I only looked at a few of his videos, but I think you technically look more, I guess, like impressive than he does like muscular, right? Like, people, like if people put you and him next to each other, they had to assume someone was not Naz, like, oh, it's probably this guy, but he's out squatting you. Yeah. So people have to really have an understanding of how leverage is, neuromuscular efficiency, which yes is something you can train, but that's in part genetic too. Like that's like those people who like never really train, but they're just strong. Great neuromuscular efficiency, all that is involved, guys. So I wanted to have Derek on the channel kind of just as like a real life example. And I'm not one of these people who's like, yeah, I can have my assumptions about who is or who isn't natty and stuff online, but Derek is like really one of my closest friends, like one of my best friends. Like, I know him. Guarantee 100%, would bet my life, yes, the dude is natural. So I brought him on so you guys can get a better understanding of, not to discourage you that like, hey, once again, like, well, this is my genetic potential, is all I can do, because a lot of you think you've reached your genetic potential when you really haven't. You just need better structured training and programming. I know for a fact, I've been working with Brendan for just like 4 going on 5 months, and I'm already realizing, whoa, what I thought my potential is nowhere near, like it's much higher. But it's understanding that to automatically slander or assume that people are like taking an unfair route because it makes you feel better, when in actuality you just have to accept the fact that they were just born with better circumstance for whatever that sport is. You guys got to stop doing that. And if you are going to really try to call these people out, which I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of channels do it just because it's popular. It's so funny to me. They're like, oh, we're trying to expose these people because they're wrong, but you're just growing off them doing wrong anyway. Exactly. It really just comes down to like, you're just trying to grow yourself. But if you're going to expose people for the right reasons, then do it the right way. Alright guys, sorry, camera died really quickly, but it's all good because we're about to close out anyway. But I just want to say, like, be more objective when you're looking at this stuff. And at the end of the day, like I said, there's nothing wrong with comparing yourselves to others for motivation. I compare myself to this dude all the time for motivation. Like, that's why we like train together. But I'm also understanding of the fact that we have different genetics, different potentials. I'm never gonna squat or bench or deadlift what this dude is. And if I get close to it, it'll be like a max effort. He'll be repping like what my maxes are. But we can still build off each other, motivate each other, and learn from each other. And that's what it comes down to. It's like and neither of us are the type of lifters where like, oh, it's just me versus the bar. We're both very competitive. That's really one of the main reasons why I do powerlifting. I like testing myself against others, but I test myself against others to make myself better. Exactly. I was gonna say, like, from that same standpoint, like with football, I'm 5 foot. I played linebacker, so I'm 5 foot. I was like 5'11", 230, 240. So football standards linebacker, I was extremely undersized. So like genetically, I wasn't, other than like being fast and like strong. I wasn't necessarily like genetically predisposed to be good at football. Exactly. So like, and it's all relative. Like what having good genetics is all relative based upon who you're around and the standard of the sport. And what the sport's trying to accomplish. But like if I let that like ever be like, oh, I'm not really built for this, so I don't really, I can't. So I'm not about it. But I just use that as motivation and try to be the best I could be. I knew like I was never going to be like Ray Lewis or Patrick Willis, like Hall of Fame linebacker, but I still like wanted my respect in what I could do and do the best you could be. And that's like guys, like you guys know, like the best advantage I have in powerlifting is that I'm kind of short. Like I'm 5'7". I'm not even as short as most of the dudes in my weight class. Most of the dudes in my weight class are like 5'5" and under. Long limbs compared to my frame, small joints, but regardless of those circumstances, I'm still trying to maximize what I can do. And that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. Quit getting so caught up on whether it's genetics, drug use, whatever it is, on like all these people and spending more time hating on them instead of building upon yourself, because it's a waste of time. You're not doing yourself any favors with that. So yeah, you good, man? Got anything else to say? You solid? I think I'm good, man. I think I got everything off my chest, man. All right, cool. So yeah, go ahead, follow my boy, check him out, follow his progress as we go into Summer Power Fest. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you did not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I can do to get better. Like the video, share, subscribe, or I will send them after you. Subscribe. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. Catch y'all later.